Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. We have a DLC coming around the corner, and some of you may have noticed I haven't even caught up with the previous DLC's overviews yet. Let's at least start to remedy that with this video, taking a look at the Shu. This is the archer-focused of the Three Kingdoms civilizations, and while for several months it was a top-tier civilization, after a recent nerf to their best bonus, they seem to be pretty balanced at the moment. They're still strong in Castle to early Imperial Age on open maps, with a good economy and power spikes in each age, but with two very different ways they're commonly played, and we'll get into both of those, as well as the multiple unique units, regional units, and controversial hero. To start with their team bonus, they've snagged the old Magyar one, giving foot archers, excluding skirmishers, plus 2 line of sight. It's probably the second best of the line of sight team bonuses after Mongols, and can be nice for map vision and spotting incoming mangonels. It's not amazing, not terrible, but already sets them up as an archer civ right off the bat, while also benefiting other archer civs on your team. Next, we'll do things a bit differently, and quickly touch on their regional units, in case you're completely new to the civ. First, they have their knight replaced by the Guang Cavalry, which give up some HP in exchange for higher attack and armor, along with a lower gold cost. Shu don't have bloodlines or iron casting, so they have the worst of the Guang, on par with bottom tier knights. It's a unit you don't actually use very often as Shu, and when we get to the ways overview, they'll be a bit more impressive. The second unique unit is the traction Trebuchet at the Siege Workshop, in lieu of the regular Trebuchet at the castle. In some ways, it's arguably closer to a bombard cannon than a trebuchet, adding in some mobility, but doing less damage to buildings than a default treb. For Shu in particular, their traction treb is a bit faster than the others, and has siege engineers for one more range than the other Three Kingdoms civs. In practice, it makes your castle slightly less important in early Imperial, whereas forward siege workshops are extra important to get these out and attacking enemy castles quickly. And finally, they have the low Chuan as a cannon galleon replacement. They're much more expensive, but are unquestionably more versatile, as they're better against buildings, while automatically switching to an arrow firing mode that lets them work better against land and naval units. Of course, you still want other units in front to keep them safe from fire ships in particular. With the regional units out of the way, the Shu's first bonus is their Lumberjacks generate 0.7 food for every 10 wood chopped. This is by far their most important bonus, helping just about any strategy, as food is always at a premium due to its lower collection rate from farms, as well as farms' upfront cost. For a ballpark idea of its impact, in a 19 pop, roughly 9-minute feudal timing, you're looking at about 600 wood collected, meaning this gives an extra 42-ish food, most of which comes during the age up, as that's when you typically have the most on wood. Once you're in feudal age, that's when it really kicks in though, and with 10 lumberjacks over a standard 10-minute feudal age, it's in the realm of 180 to 190 extra food, setting you up for a slightly earlier castle age. It's a great timing bonus for archers and crossbows, but can then lead into an easy 300 or more food throughout castle age. In the later stages, with 30 lumberjacks for example, you then get a trickle of 70 extra food per minute in Imperial Age, just to give round numbers. This all really snowballs, as it turns into earlier advancing, staying on top of your technologies, and even just means you're likely to be the first to sell food at the market in Imperial for the highest price. Even with it being recently nerfed, don't underestimate this bonus. Their second bonus then plays off the first one, with archer unit upgrades of the range and blacksmith discounted by 25%. That saves 25 food and 13 gold on fletching alone, and another 25 food on armor, which you can maybe sneak in. In Castle Age, between the obvious upgrades plus Thumb Ring, it's another 350-ish resources saved, with over another 400 in Imperial, for about 860 in total. Combined with the constant food trickle and slightly faster Castle and Imperial Age timings, you can see this all compounding if you're going archers. Keep in mind, skirmishers also piggyback off those blacksmith techs, though note that the elite skirmisher upgrade doesn't count for this bonus, it's just the archer-related techs I showed. And finally, their last bonus is their siege units in Low Chuan move 10% faster in Castle Age and 15% faster in Imperial. This affects the common Siege Workshop units, but also War Chariot and the Traction Trebuchet, plus of course Low Chuans. The one to highlight in particular here I think is the mangonel, which is able to outmaneuver others. It's not Mongols drill plus 50%, but even 10% faster in Castle Age is noticeable, where those fractions of a tile can be the difference between losing a mangonel and keeping it alive. Those are the Shu bonuses, and now let's jump to the castle for their first unique unit, the White Feather Guard. we've already established Shu are clearly set up as an archer civilization, and this unique unit seems designed to perfectly complement that plan. Compared to your standard infantry, White Feather Guard have unusually high HP and pierce armor, with a quick 11-second training time and relatively low gold cost, meaning they don't compete as much with archers directly for resources. The trade-off is they have very low attack, plus Shu are actually missing everything after the first melee attack upgrade, so they're even worse in melee than they appear. The exception is against Cavalry, where they have a decent attack bonus and can take on equal numbers of knights for a much lower cost. They end up being exactly what archers want from a frontline unit, being able to tank 95 shots from skirmishers and push your opponent out of cavalry, while also having a special effect to slow down enemy units by 15% for 10 seconds after each hit. Feather Guards even have a bit of an anti-shock infantry bonus for dealing with those pesky Jian swordsmen or eagles that archers can struggle against, so it's just a perfect synergy in so many ways. That said, they have a few weaknesses, like the obvious scorpions or hand cannons, but decent melee infantry, like even the swordsman line, can beat them cost effectively in isolation, so they don't stand on their own very well. Think of them as just a very nice complement to your standard archer play, giving you something like a spear unit with more pop efficiency and resistance to skirmishers at the cost of a bit of gold, while archers supply the DPS. Their second unique unit is then from the Siege Workshop and gives us game plan number 2 with the War Chariot, which replaces the Scorpion as a mounted version. It has a reasonably high food and especially gold cost, on its face giving you a second option instead of archers to provide the DPS that your anemic melee units need. The idea isn't to combine them with archers, but instead a relatively popular strategy involves fast castling and going all in with this unit, as it can deal with feudal age and even castle age units pretty effectively with very few upgrade requirements, since it's a siege and not an archer unit. It only takes 7 on farms and 9 on gold, with a few lumberjacks and their food trickle to sustain production on one workshop, and unlike most unique units, doesn't need a castle, and unlike cavalry archers, doesn't need fletching, thumbring, etc., though you can help it with cavalry armor upgrades if you want. It's then unusual for having 2 different fire modes. The focus fire mode, which is a bit like a scorpion and has pass-through damage with 100% accuracy, which works well against single targets or very bunched up groups, while the barrage mode works against large groups of spread out units or buildings by firing more shots in total but with very low accuracy. Altogether, it ends up being pretty effective against archers, skirmishers, and infantry, as like I said, it's basically a faster moving scorpion. The downside is it's hit extra hard by mangonel bonus damage, likewise taking bonuses from camels and eagles, and even cavalry more generally can exploit its minimum range. I've gone into much more depth a few months ago in a dedicated video on the unit, but those are the most important things to know. Functionally, like I said, it's most often used as an all-in castle age unit, or to help out against skirmishers, while potentially working as a pop-efficient alternative to archers in the late game, again reminiscent of a scorpion. So those are their 2 unique units, and now let's quickly touch on their hero. Liu Bei costs 500 food and gold with a limit of 1 at a time, and has good HP, but I wouldn't say has insanely good stats individually. His special ability is he heals all of your non-siege units within 10 tiles by 45 HP per minute, or about a third amongst healing rate. You don't really see heroes played that often, and even Saracen monks with their unique tech heal 2/3 faster, albeit with half the range. If you have the resources, Liu Bei's healing is obviously useful, but comes at the gold cost of 11 archers or 33 White Feather Guards. So if you are going to make a hero, be sure to keep it safe in the back and not throwing it away on the front lines. Staying at the castle, next let's take a look at the unique techs, which really triple down on the archer and White Feather Guard strategy. The first is Coiled Serpent Array, which for a pretty cheap cost lets your spear units and White Feather Guards gain extra HP when in a large group. It adds 1% HP for every 2 friendly units nearby, up to plus 15% in a group of 31. This happens within a 15-tile reach, which is actually pretty far, and you can mix White Feather Guard and pikes together to still get the effect off each other. In the White Feather Guard deep dive, I looked at all the funny cases and questions about how this works as you lose units, but for overview purposes, suffice to say it makes them even better in that meat shield role. With their infantry's durability enhanced, the second more expensive unique tech then addresses your civilization's DPS by giving extra projectiles to several ranged units. First and most importantly, the archer line gains 2 projectiles with 3 pierce attack each. They have fairly low accuracy, and most things will take just 1 damage after armor, but it can greatly increase your damage to buildings, while in theory spreading damage against units instead of overkilling a single unfortunate target in a group. Testing it out, you can see they work through a group of skirmishers significantly faster. It means in addition to all the cheaper techs and extra food to speed up your advance times, this then raises the ceiling on your arbalesters, putting them into the top tier. The War Chariot then also gains 2 arrows in focus fire mode and 3 more in barrage mode from the unique tech. So if you opt for that unit instead of archers, you still get some help. And additionally, low Chuans also gain 3 extra arrows, so lots of different use cases for this tech, as almost an elite upgrade for multiple units. Next though, let's put this all together and take a look at their tech tree, starting with the archers. As we've just seen, the archer line itself is explicitly incentivized in several ways, and supported even further by the White Feather Guard and their unique techs. It's not the fastest archer rush out of the gate, but the archer in a crossbow play is the obvious thing to do. Outside of that, the archery range isn't too remarkable, but the archer line still carries it to an A, as really all you need. Next up for the infantry, you have halberdier and champion, albeit with the unusual twist of lacking iron casting, reinforcing infantry is mostly a damage sponge. The White Feather Guard is in an even more exaggerated version of that as well. It gives their infantry a unique flavor in a supporting role, and especially with the spear line's extra HP, I think it's above average, good enough for a B+. Moving on to cavalry, this is the major weakness of the civilization. Extra food sounds good for scouts, but with the lack of bloodlines and attack upgrades, it falls off hard in the mid to late game, while even their Guang in this case feel like a worse version of knights. It's hard to go higher than an F when their scout line is worse than Teutons, and the Guang is arguably worse than the Korean knight line. I'll give them a C-, if only to emphasize that final armor is actually more important than it sometimes gets credit for. Next up for siege, it's an extra important workshop because of the traction trebuchet, and remember everything here moves a bit faster. The missing Scorpion is basically your War Chariot, but more mobile, and the Traction Trebuchet also does the bombard cannon role of sniping units, in addition to being anti-building. So despite all the X's, it actually feels like you have pretty much everything, and I like it enough for an A-. Moving on to the Navy, they're missing Fast Fire Ship and Cannon Galleon, though again that's replaced by, I think, the superior Low Chuan. For early game, the extra wood emphasis on water maps really feeds into the Lumberjack bonus, helping earlier than usual. And the attack upgrades being cheaper for archers is actually a nice bonus for galleys, who also need fletching, so it's maybe even an A- early. For late game, they're again solid, and I think a B+ feels right, even if Fast Fire Ship itself isn't an option. The proposed naval overhaul coming soon also just seems to double down on the weak fireship line, with 2 missing techs that affect that unit specifically. Taking a quick look at the monks, they're missing Redemption, Block Printing, Sanctity for the extra HP, and Herbal Medicine, maybe since your hero can already heal units passively. They're actually missing what I consider the big 3 techs here, so it's instantly a very weak monastery, and I'd give it a C-. Next up for defenses, almost everything is available except for some late game tower techs. More maneuverability on siege is also an indirect defensive bonus in my opinion, but overall it's just a good but not amazing B. And finally, for their trash units, that is, units that don't cost gold, the skirmishers are fully upgraded, and the halberdier is missing some attack upgrades, but has more HP with a unique tech. The clear weakness is a light cavalry, missing bloodlines and attack, which I actually think is big enough that it drags things down here to a C+. Clearly, the game plan though is to close things out quite a bit before that point, between your strong economy, cheaper archer upgrades when you age up, and then extra DPS on archers late. I'd say the War Chariot gives you just enough to avoid being completely predictable, and can punish an opponent going too hard into skirmishers. But if you're a big fan of archers, Shu are definitely a civilization you'll enjoy, albeit with a trade-off of very weak cavalry. Speaking of enjoying shoes though, there's nothing better than giving yourself the gift of happy feet, in which case you should really check out the selection offered in my new online business, Spirit of the Loafers. You can order off a great website I made with this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place. Using either their pre-made templates or Squarespace's AI-enhanced website builder, you can create a fully customized website to suit your needs. It's perfect for building an online presence for a physical business or starting an online store using their built-in tools for inventory and shipping, with plenty of analytics to give you insight about your website's traffic and sales. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that's a jam-packed overview of the Shu. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.